We are joined now by BJ Armstrong, former NBA player, now Derrick Rose's agent, 11 seasons in the NBA, 7 of those with the Chicago Bulls. Here to talk Pooh, the Derrick Rose story. First, just tell me, why did both you and Derrick decide to produce this film?
Well, Derrick wanted to tell his story in an authentic way where he can express himself and give a first-person account of how he was feeling at that particular time. So, you know, it's a great opportunity for him, a piece of art, which really it holds dear to his heart because of what it means to him and everything he went through. And at that particular time, you know, there was a lot of things that were swirling around, you know, whether they were true or not. And Derrick wanted to really say, you know what, let me tell it in my own words, give an account, and really share it with the people, the fans, his family, and people that have followed him throughout his career.
Stadium is, of course, a great platform for this. However, in your own words, why Stadium?
Because Stadium is Chicago, and this is a Chicago story. And when we met with them the very first time, they got it. You know, you and I were talking beforehand about being from New York. You don't really understand New York unless you're from New York.
Exactly.
You know, Derrick is Chicago, and Stadium got it, and we thought this was the perfect fit, the perfect match for everyone involved.
Let's get into Derrick's NBA career. As someone who grew up in Chicago, what impact did it have on him to be drafted first overall to the Bulls in 2008?
Well, it meant the world to him. You know, you grow up here, you watch the professional team as a young kid. He was able to watch, you know, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and make a run. And all of a sudden, not only play in Chicago, he's drafted #1, and then ascend to be the most valuable player in the city he grew up in front of his family and friends. So it was a dream come true for him. One he could have never imagined. He was so grateful to have that opportunity and really humble to have the opportunity to play here in Chicago.
Within Derrick's first 3 seasons, he was the NBA's Rookie of the Year and MVP, the youngest in NBA history. How surprised were you at his success that early in his career?
Well, we were all surprised. I mean, you can't calculate that. I mean, just to hear you say he was the youngest MVP ever. I mean,
still give you goosebumps?
Yeah, it does. I mean, this league is since 1946, and then all of a sudden, here was a young kid from Inglewood, right down the road here, becomes the MVP in his 3rd season. It's just you know, I can't even wrap my mind around that. We never imagined that. I don't think he ever imagined it. He just wanted to play and make a name for himself and represent his city. And you know what? But he was a special talent and a great kid. He worked for it, and you know, those were great times.
The ACL tear that he suffered from during those 2012 playoffs, a lot of emotions around that time. How great of a setback was that for him?
Well, it was emotionally, you know, psychologically, you know, obviously the physical, you know, having to really adjust your game, really figure out and reorganize how you're going to play, what is it going to look like. But it was an adjustment for him. I think mentally he was trying to figure out what is the balance between, because he was such a dominant force as a player, but then he had to change his game. But now I think he has a balance between of what he can and can't do on any given night. You see flashes of it. I mean, this year he had a 50-point game. I mean, who has a 50-point game at this stage of his career? So, you know, he's still that special athlete, and he still shows glimpses of things that he used to do just on a natural basis when he was younger.
And that injury caused him to miss the 2012-2013 season, the entire season. When you look at it, how difficult was it for him to miss that time?
Well, it was very difficult because, you know, I know how badly he wanted to play. He wanted to play, and he wanted to get out there, and, you know, he didn't forget, and we didn't forget that, you know, the Bulls were a team that was looked at as a potential championship caliber team before the injury. So, you know, you go from we're right there to winning a championship to suddenly you lose one of your centerpieces to helping you move over the top or get over the top. So it was a very difficult time for him in many ways, but I think mentally it was probably more challenging for him because I know how badly he wanted to get out there on the floor.
Derrick was traded to the Knicks in 2016. What effect did that trade have on him?
Well, this was the first time you know, anytime you get traded, the very first time is very difficult because you have so many emotions, right? This is the first time that you feel you know, it's like, well, why was I traded? There's like even though it's not negative, you feel like did they not want me anymore,
right.
or what have you? So it was a difficult time for him, you know, because, you know, this is home. It wasn't like he was traded from a place where, you know, he wasn't in Miami, or he wasn't in Orlando. This is where he's from. This is his home. So, you know, that was hard for him to get over. But you know what, as they say, life goes on, and he was able to move on. And New York was great. And I remember when we went there for the draft the very first time, he was talking about how big this city was. You know, he could never live in New York.
That's what he would usually say.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a great city.
And now he's
you gotta rise the occasion for New York.
Yes, it takes time. And then when he was living there, he loved the city of New York, and he loved it. He loved the restaurants. He loved the fact that he could walk down the street.
Right.
He just loved the city. He loved the train. He loved the smell of the city. I think it grows on you. So he went from a kid when he first came in the league, he couldn't stand it. He was intimidated, until now he loves it. And he spends a lot of time there during the offseason.
And Derrick's 2017-2018 season started with the Cavaliers, ended with the Timberwolves.
Right.
How special was it for him to be reunited with head coach Tom Thibodeau?
Well, it was great because he has a familiarity with Tom. And Coach Thibodeau, you know, they're really the same. They're just like gym rats. They love the game. All they care about is basketball. I don't think they have any other things that they really enjoy other than playing basketball. So him and Coach Thibodeau, they're like peas in a pod. They're one and the same, and that was great for him to get back. And it was great for him to get back with a voice that he was very familiar with. Made him feel comfortable. He kind of fit right in there to Minnesota, and it was a good fit for him.
And let's talk about Derrick's year this year, cut short by an elbow injury. He averaged 18 points per game, mostly coming off of the bench. How surprised were you at the level at which he played?
Well, the way the game is played today, I'm not surprised because you're having more opportunities. And, you know, when Derrick first came in this league, he was a driver, penetrator, and he would get to the basket. To watch him now shoot threes and be a spot-up three-point shooter, it's, you know, it's kind of funny to see how he has really, you know, he's transformed his game, and he's really become a different player than he was, let's say, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Certainly, he's a different player than when he won the MVP. So he's really adjusted. He's made the proper adjustments to his game. He shoots the three ball with consistency now. He's doing things. He's picking his spots, and he's playing a different game than what they played, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, because the game now is all about pace and space.
And how is it for you to see how he's evolved? You talk about this change from when he first got into the league and now. How is it when you see him evolve on that court?
Well, you know, you know, physically he's so dominating. You know, he's strong, he's an athletic kid. And now to see how he's thinking the game. And, you know, to see how he, you know, says, well, you know what, when I was younger, I probably would have just went, you know, all in and just go to the basket. And now, you know, he plays a little slower. You know, he'll play slow, and then you know, he'll just, you know, he adjusts his speed. He plays at different speeds now. But the most important thing, I think he's taking advantage and making the game much broader for him because he's shooting the three-point shot. And so I think that part of his game has really changed his game, how he plays it. But he's really, you know, he's thinking the game. And, you know, this is a different game now, a different era. And, you know, you're seeing a lot of scoring in today's game. You know, the Golden State Warriors, the Houston Rockets, well, they'll shoot 50, 60 threes.
Oh, definitely high-scoring games.
High-scoring games.
What's your outlook for Derrick next season and beyond?
Well, we're just looking to find for him the right fit. I think him, you know, he's kind of settled into, you know, what he does and what he does well. And the way the game is played, I think he's comfortable whether he's a starter or coming off the bench, but he just wants to be where he doesn't, you know, have to have that burden of what he did when he was younger of carrying a franchise. I don't know if that is probably the best thing for him physically at this age. Certainly he has the capability to do it, and you'll see him have a 50-point game, a 30-point game. But you know what? I don't know how that serves him at this age of his career of just playing that many minutes, playing 35, 40 minutes a night like he did early in his career. So I just think finding the right fit for him, understanding where his body's at, understanding the team, because in the end, all he wants to do is contribute to winning. And that's been his focus from the day one when he first came in this league. And that's something I know he wants to continue as now he's in the later stages of his career.
A lot of special and great insight there, BJ. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.